Alright, I wanted to create a tutorial video about how to create a flashlight with battery life. So let me kind of show you guys how it's going to look at the end before we get into the programming side of it. So you can see here, only one bar left at the top. Normal flashlight, looking around, batteries dead. This whole tutorial will be done with Playmaker. If you're not familiar with Playmaker, it's a visual scripter that is, again, you can buy it for Unity. It actually came with some of the bigger Unity packages last year. So if you bought that, you probably already have it, don't even know. If not, you can just get it off the asset store. It's $65, but I think it's well worth it. As you can see, I can just open it here. I already have it. But nonetheless, it has completely changed my life. If you've been frustrated with C Sharp, frustrated with just coding in general, or if you were like myself who was originally coding and you felt that your game wasn't really coming out the way you wanted it to, this is actually great. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, this is a Playmaker scripting tutorial. All right, first, obviously, you want to have a first-person character. As you can see here, this is actually the camera. The controller, I mean, you guys know you can get this from a standard access pack, or you can get it pretty much anywhere. And again, first person, so all you guys are looking at kind of behind the scenes is just the camera view. So, AKA how first-person games are created, just having that camera view moving around, which is great. Next, obviously, you need a flashlight. Now the flashlight here, and I'll explain why it's two flashlights in a bit. The flashlight here is just a light. Click it on, click it off, as you can see up here. And when you guys are creating it, just make sure it's a spotlight, because obviously any other light, you're looking at a whole nother ball game. So if you look at, like I said, directional light, that's more like the sun. So if you my last game, 211 CK, I use a lot of directional light and really focus on where I wanted it. And so that's great. Point light is more like for like a flashlight in the hall. So I'll show you guys a good example of a point light that I'm using now in my game. So like up here, point light. Let me show you guys. So that's a point light. Kind of lights this whole area here. And you can kind of like I said, move it around, change the intensity, etc. Um, but anyway, let's get back to the flashlights, like we guys talked about. So you want to make sure that it is a spotlight, and obviously when you first make a spotlight, it's going to be pointing down. Super simple. You can just rotate it. It's going to be pointing down. So this is a flashlight. Is a spotlight is good for if you were making a game with like street lights and you wanted the lights to point on the floor. You can do that. But we're going to switch it, turn it into a flashlight. So it's really, really simple. All right, once you guys get that set up, and again, I apologize for not doing it step by step. I kind of just want to show you guys what I did, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to email me, leave a message in the comments. I will gladly answer any questions that you guys had, because I once was in your shoes, not really as familiar with Unity, not as familiar with Playmaker, and even now, I'm sure that there's things that I could be doing with the settings that aren't really advantageous or optimal for best results. So I'm still learning as well, but just wanted to share what I knew. So anyway, let's get down and dirty with the programming. The first things first, just to show you some of the functionality, you want to have an on and off switch. And just again, kind of show you guys what I mean and kind of let you guys see it before we go over to the boring code. For me, just hitting the G button. That's how I have it programmed at the moment. It's real simple. All right. This is probably the easiest thing you're going to do, so I would recommend setting it up first. Um, I did the script a little different because I had a little trouble the traditional way, but I'll just show you the way I did it here. Basically, you guys want to go to your action setting, and again, this is a Playmaker setting, so if you guys go up the top, if you install Playmaker, you have the window here. And at that point, like I said, I always dock my actions window here. Just easier, super simple. Just go to key, and you guys can see all the key inputs here, key up, key down. And again, this is really, you can get really creative with these things, but just wanted to show you a key down. So for me, it was G, but you can pretty much pick any letter, any key you want on the keyboard. And at that point, you want to set it to your finish state. So really simple. Since it's the finish state, comes over to state one. State one deactivates the flashlight. And how does it deactivate? You can see here, this is activate, that's deactivate. Recursive is all of the children. So again, the game I'm making gets a little bit more complex. I have two different flashlights going. So I wanted to deactivate all of them because you're turning your flashlight completely off. All right. And so again, this is kind of repetitive. I probably can just cross that out, but whatever, I'm going to leave that. And then after, you want to go to play sound. And so play sound, that's the flashlight on sound. And again, you can pick up these sounds multiple places, Asset Store. You can go to Audacity, create the sounds yourself. Multitude of ways you can get these sounds. Next, what you want to do is a finish action. And as you can see, from G down goes to finish action. Two, this is, because the thing is, you never want to turn it off and be locked into this state, right? So flashlight is up, comes back here, flashlight, you press, so it's waiting for this state now. And then I'll show you guys in a bit. Hit G again, turns the flashlight on, brings it here. So I'll break it to you guys. I'm gonna show you guys real quick. Break it down to you guys. Next, I'm gonna go back. We're not gonna maximize on play. But you guys will see the script for yourself in action. So it starts there, hit that G button, brings it over. And again, this is just waiting at this point for me to hit the G button again. Brings it here, and I've activated flashlight off, play sound, waiting for the G button again. It's gonna bring it back. So again, I apologize. I know I said I was gonna turn this off last time. I wasn't thinking. But yeah, this G button right here is just waiting for a prompt to turn it off, turn it on. So, all right. So as you saw, if you noticed closely, that it was turning it off and on with no battery life. That's another script we'll get into a little bit later. All right, that's super easy. Hope you guys got that. The next thing I want to do is actually life of the battery. So I think people are probably like, Keenan, I know how to turn on and off an item. It's actually really simple, but let's get the battery life going. So I don't know if you guys are aware of the ecosystem in Playmaker. So if you go into Playmaker and you go to add-ons and you go to ecosystem browser, this is a lifesaver. So if there's an action that you're like, man, I'm not really sure if they have that, right? You know, you can just go to like floats, right? We're going to talk about floats later. You can kind of look at what are some of the actions that that they have here, or like game object is what I went to. What are some things that they have here that they might not have already in the bundle? So you can actually find a bunch of different assets. Did it even load? Yeah. And the point is, I got this game object as active asset. Excuse me, action from here, which is really, really cool. And you guys can again look through these. There's a ton of things on here. These were lifesavers to me. But nonetheless, what I did was game object is active in hierarchy. So what this does is it checks it. It checks if there's, let me kind of close, I got all these things open. It checks if this is active in a hierarchy, right? So if it is active, and I wanted to check it every frame, so make sure you have that checked. If not, it's not going to work. It's going to check it one time and it's going to stop. So if it's on, have on and off. If it's on, it brings it right down here. And as you can see, float life, battery life, subtract 1. So before you say, now you're saying float life, what are you talking about, Keenan? Immediately, you want to actually give the battery actual life in the game. So here is my battery life. it is a float variable. And so the first thing you want to do is create a new variable. And for this, we'll call it BL, right? Once you go to BL, hit add. You want to make sure it's a float, or you can do it int. I always like floats. I just kind of lean towards floats a little bit more, because again, you know, not that you're going to be using decimals, but you might. You never know. So you want to make it a float variable. Call it whatever you want. You're going to call it BL for here, and you're going to add it. Now, the thing is, you want to right click it to go to move to global variables. Now this is important because let's say you build this whole thing I tell you and you don't move it, you can always move it later, but if you don't move it, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get it in other scenes. So most people are going to create games that have multiple scenes, not just this one level. And so you want to be able to move it around a little bit more and access it, pull the information elsewhere as well. So what I always do is I always move it to globals. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. And you can see these are my global variables here. You can always access the same window here, but since we're showing you it adopted. Anyway, you can always assign a value to it. And so for this case, it'll be 800. But what I want to do for you guys is just understand when you, let's say you're creating health, someone's life, right, as well. Enemy life, you would do it the same way. You know, health, you go to like life, you know, boss or whatever, boss life. So yeah, you type out there, float variable, boom, add, you're good to go. What's this life? This life is 800, whatever. You know, it's actually, floats are going to save your life. No pun intended, but it's how you create life, for enemies, for yourself, and also for batteries. So anyway, let's get back to the original float variable. Right now I have it at 10. That's why it was only 1 bar and it was dying so quick. But for argument's sake, let's put it at 300. So value is at 300 right now, and you'll see, we'll kind of see the script in action. Before we look at it in action, so what's going to happen is you want to go to float subtract. It's going to subtract 1 every second, every frame as well. So again, just taking off 1. And if it's not, because again, you always want to say, what if you turn the flashlight off? You don't want it to be draining batteries, right? What kind of like game would that be? You want to go to every frame, and that will bring it back. So I'll show you guys, again, show you guys that in action. This is the simple stuff. Get the simple stuff right, because the next script is going to be a little bit more complex. So you can see it already checked. Is it active? Yes, it is active. So it brought it over here immediately. And you can see to the right, again, the script isn't running as smooth, but it is taking away every second. You'll see that the value is actually going down slowly but surely in the battery life, and there's only 2 bars. We'll talk more about how to get those bars there. So we talked about earlier the script, having the button to turn it off. So I turned it off, it went back. If you notice that the battery life is no longer draining anymore. So if I hit the G button again, now it is draining. See how it works? So those are the easy scripts, bang, bang. You can pretty much copy all of that if you want. Now, here's where it gets a little bit more complex. Now, for me, I'm creating a game where I want my batteries to only have a life of 800, right? And that's the max. And we're gonna go over some more things in a bit, but I want to have a max for my battery. I don't want people to just find, because in this game you'll find batteries. I don't want you to just find batteries and next thing you know your battery life is like 3,000 and you pretty much don't have to worry about that because you stack them up. So what I'm doing here is kind of going back to those floats we mentioned earlier, back to battery life. So you want to go float compare, and for you it'd be blank. So you just want to hit this button here, none. You want to go to your globals, but I talked about mentioning that earlier. You can access them anywhere. So now it's going to check for this battery life at the top, 300, and I have it saying compare it to 800. Now, if it's ever greater than 800, I want you to bring it to 800 max, which is going to bring it here, and it's going to set the float variable to 800. So, and it's only going to do it once, so it doesn't need to do it every frame. So if there's ever a situation, which I'll show you guys later, where someone has already full battery, 4 bars, and they find batteries, it's not going to go over 800. No cheating. It's if you have 700, let's say your battery life is around 700, and you find a battery pack that's like fills up all your battery, great. Now you're gonna have 800. You pretty much wasted it. It's like charging your phone when it's at 100, when it's at 90%. You're only gonna get 10% more battery. So you want to make sure you have things like that in your game, because there will be people who try to exploit your games. All right, lastly, before I let you guys go, this is the more complex one, battery bars. And as you guys can see, you want to set it up on your canvas. So let's go to the scene view, canvas. As you guys can see here, got it backwards. I had it the right way. No, that was backwards. Anyway, as you guys can see here, you want to get into the canvas. The best thing about what you want to do for your battery, again, you can do a slider as well. That's another video, but I just chose this because I think it looks cool. It's very direct. It's very to the point. You need to just create 4 different, and you can do 5 if you want, because this bar around it is 5 game objects here. I thought I had it in order. Move it down. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, here we go. Try again. 1, 2. Anyway, so 1, 2, 3, 4. What you guys want to do, and you want to be able to turn them off by Playmaker or programming, right? So, boom, as you guys can see there. So your goal is to just create a script surrounding that and have that script match up as well. So you want to have the game start with checking, what are we checking here? A float compare. So I should have put this to the top. Back to the float compare we looked at earlier. Everything is about float compares. And so what this float is comparing is if, go to your global variables, if battery life is 600, it's equal to or less, it's going to go to 3 bars. Then when you're in 3 bars, it checks if battery life is 400 or less or equal to, goes to 2 bars. So you can see here when we pop in the game with the script running, my battery life is 300. You can see here. Boom. 1, 2, 3. It goes right to 2 bars. All right, so let's look at what's in those scripts. So first script, pretty much what I'm doing is I'm activating 1, 2, 3, 4, as we looked at earlier, all 4 game objects that are CH1. And again, I think the biggest thing is finding a good art asset to actually create a battery icon. For me, they actually had a nice one on the asset store, so I just got that. But you could create one yourself. It's up to you. Money doesn't have to be the thing. But anyway, you want to activate those. But more importantly, and you'll see this why later, you want to activate your flashlight. Now, the greatest thing about Playmaker is that if the flashlight is already active, it won't deactivate it. You get what I'm saying? So you want to just do that because there's going to be times where your player runs out of batteries and you want them to find batteries and it turns it back on immediately. So, and then also too, again, since I'm doing something a little bit more unique with this game. I have 2 different flashlights. I want to make sure I turn this flashlight on, not my spotlight attack. So, which is another story. And then the same thing is pretty much repeated throughout each of the bars, with the exception of channel 4, so number 4. So you can see here, number 4, as we mentioned earlier, is the first one. I guess the 4th, right? So this script right here is saying turn off channel 4, right? And so here's the thing too, you want to make sure that your script can go both ways, not only for, like I said, not only for running out of battery, but also gaining battery as well. So in this script, you can also look at it and see, okay, if the player has, over 600, we're going to go to 4 bars. You want to create a script where you can go 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 4. So that's very important as well. So again, just kind of repeating the same thing. Channel 1, channel 2 is active. Flashlight is active. And as you can see, there's always two float compares, and there's always channels turned on and off. So it's pretty much repeating itself. So here you want to go 400, you want to go 200, and 1 is the same thing as well. Just kind of give you guys a visual. If you guys want to pause it at any point during the video to take notes, feel free. But lastly, this one is a little bit different here. So my 0 bars, it pretty much, let's go down to this, what the script says. It checks if your global battery life is at 0. Then at that point, let me go back to 1. If it's at 0, if it's under 200, here it is. Let's go back. If it's at 0, 0 bars equal to or less than, it's going to bring it down to here. And once it brings it to this section of the script, it's actually going to turn your flashlight off. And the recursive is going to turn everything off as well under it, which is great for me because I have the other flashlight. Then it's going to turn off all of the channels. So all of the lights are going to be off there. And you can turn off the whole thing if you actually wanted to. But I'll talk to you guys about that a little bit later. And to kind of look at it in motion, what we'll do is we'll set the script to 5, kind of like 4, I should say, kind of like we had it before. And you'll see it's going to go from 1 bar to 0. So check that, it's 1 bar, back to 0. See that? Now, you're wondering, how can we get batteries in here? Great question. So we actually have batteries already set up, and I'm going to show you how we did it right now. It's going to be a quick one. It's really easy. So I actually put batteries in this drawer. How to get the drawers to open is another tutorial we'll do another day. But I have a Playmaker script on all of them. And so how the battery works is I have a trigger on it. So long story short with this, I'm not going to go over the drawer too much, but pretty much once the drawer opens, it activates the battery, right? And so once the battery is activated, actually, let me show you guys. You can see here how big that is. Actually, I'm probably going to make it bigger when the game is done. It pretty much, once the player, you want to put a trigger event, once the player collides with this here, okay, it's going to send it over, give you the option to hit the key, right? For this, I programmed E. It's going to activate the game object, press E, which is, if I activate it here, I'll show you guys. It's the E button, okay? Let me go back. And so what that is doing, let me turn it back off, because I want you guys to see that. All right, and so what that's doing is, again, it's prompting me, it's telling me I can press E. And then what it's going to do is it's going to add to the battery, okay? So, and you can see it's a float add. And again, where are we adding it? Let's go back to our globals, adding it back to the variable. So right now it's at 4. If we were to get this, it's going to go to 200. Again, you don't want to do it every frame, don't want to do it every second. It's just a one-time thing. And at that point, it's going to destroy itself. Now, you can make multiple batteries. You can make a rechargeable battery, and then you could just make a finished script here, and then bring it back or something like that. But I don't know what kind of battery that would be. But let's look at how this works actually in real time. So I'll show you guys a little bit smaller. So my battery is actually dead, and I'm going to hit E. Boom, back up. So you can see. So let's look at that again with a little bit more battery life, since the battery did die. So we're going to go to 200. It's going to go from 2 bars to 1. Let's go to 202 actually. 202. You see the battery set up here. Waiting for a trigger. It's going to prompt me to press E. Once I press E, it's going to send it to a finish event. It's going to send it here. If the player exits, it's gonna go back, wait for the trigger. Because the idea is that you want to create on trigger exit, because if the player were to leave the vicinity, you don't want the player to go up the hall and then press E because it's still waiting there, and then you can pick up the battery. So you have to be in there. So it's trigger stay. So all right, so we're gonna watch it in action one more time. You guys see here again, 2 bars. It's going down to 1. Notice the battery life at the bottom. What I'll do is pick this up. B. It's gonna prompt me with E. Boom. 2 more life, 2 bars. Looks good.